Hi, I'm Jan Doyle. Welcome to Wyse Talk. Today's guest is absolutely sensational. There are very few people that can master photography and painting and do both well. And that's what today's guest is all about. I'd like to welcome Battista to the show.
It's great to be here.
I'm so happy to see you. I met you maybe about a month ago, a mutual at an art opening. We both had images in, and neither of us won first place, I might add. I was a little depressed.
Your image of the owl was wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Job.
You
great
remember
job.
it. And a person in common mentioned you to me because we have a background that's very similar. What do you do now that I used to do?
Well, I'm a teacher. I serve as an art teacher in the West Haven school system.
Yes, and I used to teach in West Haven, so it was wonderful having that connection. Well, let's get right into what you do. Let's get started with, we have an image that's going to be coming up on the monitor, and it's a picture, the same picture we have of this gentleman behind us. Where was that taken?
It was taken in a small town in Italy called Pesaro.
And how did that image come about?
I was walking the street early one morning and just met the gentleman and asked if I could take his photograph, and he was kind enough to let me take a few shots.
How did you elicit that expression from him?
It was just really from him. Was just sort of waited for the moment to come and take the shot.
And do you engage with the participant?
Usually I do. Usually when I'm in the U.S., it's a little bit easier to engage. My Italian's a little rusty, so it was a little difficult to engage with them. But used a lot of hand motions and.
Yeah, because if I'm traveling and I want to take a picture of someone in another country, I just point to the camera. And usually, as a woman, they let me do it. But do you have any issues with that as a fellow?
Yeah, occasionally I try to shy away from photographing children or women alone. It's a little easier to.
Oh, that's a good point.
I shoot a lot of the elderly, so they're a little bit more relaxed about having their photographs taken.
I was in Casablanca shooting a little girl, and she came up to me and gave me a kiss, and I looked and saw her grandfather, and he went like this.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But that's because of a woman. They would never do that with you. I'm just saying. Well, I just love this particular image, and what you were able to evoke from this person is just phenomenal. I'm going to move on to another image that you have, a JPEG called A House Divided. And very interestingly, this was inspired by a book. Can you explain that?
Yes, actually, my uncle had given me an old antique book about the Civil War. And when I went to reach for the book, I had the book stored in my garage. I found that the book was actually split into two. And to me, that was very symbolic of what's happening today in our current political climate. There's a lot of divisiveness happening. And I decided to make a composition based on this book that was split. So the book actually became used as a base for the composition and design. And I started to use other elements in the picture symbolically to represent what's happening in our culture today. Now, is this a painting or a photograph? This is a photograph.
This is a photograph. So looking back at it, you have all these elements in your house, or did you go out and look for them?
Most of them I had in my house. I actually had to purchase a couple of items that I was interested in on eBay to just complete the arrangement.
So can you explain some of the images?
Sure. If you look at the child's block, there's an image of an airplane on there.
Yes.
And the airplane is pointed towards the rectangular domino. That represents what the tragedy of 9/11 and what happened during that time. Also, color is used symbolically. The colored marbles, rainbow-colored marbles, the black and white marbles, represent some of the issues with gender and race in our country. Also, there's a shell casing and the number 2 on a block, and that represents some of these issues about public safety and the need to protect our rights, the Second Amendment rights, and the ability to protect ourselves and our family.
Very interesting. I need to ask you a little bit about the creative process. So you saw that you had the book in the garage.
I had the book in the garage, and the book inspired me to create this image. Because the book was about the Civil War, actually the book was so old, the title wasn't even about the Civil War. It said the history of the American Rebellion. I remembered a speech that President Lincoln gave when he was nominated for the the presidency. And I think the quote was actually, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." And I just felt that that represented what's happening now in our culture politically and through the media. There's so much divisiveness going on. So this is sort of a call for unity to try to find a common bond and not be so divisive in our dealings with others.
That's amazing. And I need to ask you, do you sketch it out ahead of time?
Yes,
or you do sketch
because
it?
I'm also a painter. A lot of my images I'll kind of work out on paper, even sketch out some of the lighting that I'm looking for. And then it progresses. The actual initial sketch looks a lot different than what the ultimate photo ended up being.
Because I interview a lot of artists and photographers, and I find the creative process very interesting. And the more I do these interviews, the more I realize there's pre-sketches or sketches that people do.
Yeah, it's a great way to kind of get your ideas out and kind of work out some of the design problems before actually creating the setup. So my notebooks are full of sketches and ideas, and
you know what I'm going to have to buy?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to buy a sketchbook.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you're causing me to go spend some money. That's very interesting about that photograph. Has that won any prizes?
This one, I've entered it at the Salmagundi Club in New York in one of their shows, but it hasn't won a prize.
What's the name of that club?
The Salmagundi Club.
Now that club, I was told, and I feel, sorry that I'm so ignorant, but I was told that club is the way I would say it, shishi poo poo papa.
It's a well-known club.
And to get into the club, you have to be very, very, very good.
It was a long process. I had to submit my work and my resume, and it was judged. Both my photographs and my paintings were judged, and luckily I was elected into the club.
Well, I'm impressed, and to think I recognized your work right off as being good. So, well, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
I'd like to go on to the next picture, Child's Play. And this particular image, in Child's Play, you have some things where there's contrast. Could you explain this a little bit for me?
Well, this is actually, it's a tribute to the men and women that serve in our country. Again, some of the objects are used symbolically. I started with actually some objects from my dad's career in the Marine Corps, his cover, his hat, and the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. And I arranged them with children's toys. And this is a statement about how, in times of war, our youth are the ones that really carry the burden. Our men and women that are going off to war are our young, and have so much respect for them. So I wanted to sort of juxtapose the children's elements that represent innocence with the hat from the Marine Corps. Even the angle of the flag. There's a famous photograph of the raising the flag in Iwo Jima, where the Marines are on the hilltop raising the flag. Flag's at a very steep angle.
Yes.
I intentionally had the flag in this design to kind of mirror that flag from that photograph.
Well, what I'm thinking is this is amazing, and I didn't realize how much thought went into some, because I love to take pictures, but I'm sort of like, oh, ching, 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 and move on.
Yeah.
But when you do your still lifes, you have a lot
there's a lot of thought behind it, and hopefully it's something that looks beautiful and has beautiful colors and lines, but also hopefully there's some type of a meaning behind the objects that I'm selecting or the way that I'm photographing them.
Well, you're giving me a lot of information to grow as a photographer. I'd like to move into the next one. I'm going to say azure.
Okay, I say azure, which basically means blue. So maybe I should change the title to blue. It'd be a lot easier.
Azure. Okay. So I was looking at this earlier when they were putting it on the monitor, and I found it. I've seen a lot of people take pictures of. Is it conch shells?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen anybody put a marble inside. What was the behind this?
I was just playing around with this. There's no great deep meaning in this image, but was just playing around with line, shape, and color. And a lot of my work tends to be on the darker tones of the spectrum. and I wanted to work with some colors that are a little bit lighter. And to me, the sort of the sandy colors and the shell and the blues, they remind me of the beach. When I was a kid, I spent my summers on the beach in West Haven. My mom would take me, my sister, my cousins down to the beach almost every day. And after work, my dad would come and meet us. And it just brings back some memories of my childhood.
Now, when I look at that, the background, how did you get that background?
The backgrounds I actually custom make. I actually paint them. And backgrounds are very, very important when you're working on still lifes. A background could either make your objects stand out, or they could make your objects almost seem to fade and blend into the background and not be seen. So I use a process with brushes and rollers and sponges to create whole sets of different kinds of backgrounds.
Now I have, you're also, I understand, you're going to be giving a workshop at the Brantford Arts Center.
Yes.
In photography on macro, but part of that is you're going to be showing the students how to create backgrounds. So this is an example of what you have.
Yes, and the participants will even have an opportunity. We're going to start the workshop out creating original backgrounds, custom backgrounds, so everybody will be able to have their own background to bring home with them.
Well, I could just take these.
Yeah, okay, they're yours.
So I'm noticing that, you know, you have I'm just noticing that you have different backgrounds, and there's another one that's darker.
Yeah, some have a lot of texture, and I'll kind of play with that to work with the design, and some are a little bit more smooth, depending on what I'm photographing.
Well, that takes people's work up a significant level when they start creating their own backgrounds, and they have that information to take home with them besides just doing the macro photography. Very interesting. Now, JPEGs, you have another JPEG of something called Flower and Stem, and that's coming up on the monitor? Flower and Stem?
Yeah,
and this is a photograph.
This is a photograph as well. And again, interested really in color, the color relationships. They're colors that relate well to each other. Every color in there has a little touch of yellow, you know, the yellow, the lime green, the orange. So in this image, I'm really responding to the lines and the colors.
And I would also say your focal point is not what usually people photograph. They usually take a flower and they go head on. You're underneath the flower and shooting the backside of the flower.
And letting some of the light actually come through the background. It's the flower is actually backlit.
Now, are you doing this in your home studio or is this outside?
This let's see. This flower is actually my wife has a garden at home, so this was actually in the garden at home that I was shooting.
It's good to have a wife who grows
flowers.
flowers.
Yeah, and she shares her flowers usually, which is good.
It's good to have that, because that was a beautiful image. The next one we have image coming up is called Curves and Drops on the screen. We're going to see, now this one, first of all, I love the color of the flower, but this so I love the color. You attract my attention with the color and the green, but the shape of it.
Yeah, I was really responding to the curves and the lines, and used a shallow depth of field, which only allows a little bit of the flower to be in sharp focus, and the rest of the background to just sort of fade off into a blur.
Now, I'm wondering, is that a real water drop, or did you spray it with a...
Those were actually real water drops. You know, photographers will sometimes use, you know, a syringe with water or glycerin, but I had taken that in the morning.
Those are secrets.
Secrets I better not share.
Don't let the audience know that.
Yeah.
And sometimes they also use a spray bottle. Wow. Do you really use the syringe with glycerin?
I've never tried. I've heard about it, but I've never tried it.
Because I don't use glycerin. I just use water. So that was interesting. Now I want to mention that you're a member of the North Haven Camera Club.
Yes, it's a local camera club. Great club. We have members who are professional photographers, as well as people that are just starting out and using their cell phones. And it's a club where everybody's helping one another. We learn from each other and have friendly competitions every month.
Well, the second art opening that I saw you at, I saw it the first one.
Okay.
It was
This was in the Voice of Art in Cheshire.
Yes. And then the second art opening was here in Brantford at the Brantford Arts Center. And little did I know, I didn't know it was the North Haven Camera Club, and there's a lot of people who are members of both, and there are also people who, one fellow used to be my service manager at the Honda dealership.
Oh, Joe, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and I love him. I still am mad at him for leaving. Oh. I'm trying to get over it, but it's hard. But the fun part is I knew a lot of people there, and I didn't realize that...
It's a wonderful place, and Yvonne Gordon, the owner of the gallery, is so generous of her space and her time. This is the second time that she's allowed our group to show there.
Now, you said you have a website. What is your website?
It's www.markbattista.com.
Okay, now on your website, because before I did a pre-interview with you in my office,
okay.
I was reading what you said, and you enjoy creating a visual dialogue between the two disciplines in art and painting. What does that mean exactly?
I find that my photography influences my painting, and my painting also influences my photography. Years ago, I used to just use photography as a tool for my painting. I would need to get some reference, so I would go out and shoot some subjects, or if I was painting a picture of an older person, I wouldn't be able to paint them in my studio late at night, so I needed to work from photographs. And I was working with straight film back then. Eventually, when digital cameras came out, I decided to explore that, and fell in love with photography as well. So now I'm doing a lot of photography, almost as much photography as I am as painting. And,
well, not only did you have photographs at the Branford Art Center, you had paintings. Yes. And I was walking out with a friend of mine, and he was, he told me, you're a phenomenal painter, and I have total respect for his opinion, and I'm learning a lot about painting from him. And he pointed out a few details to me. And he mentioned to me that, I'm not sure if I see it up here, maybe it's a JPEG, the JPEG of the coffee, tea, and milk, and that you have such detail in your paintings that they look like photographs, and actually I thought they were.
They're very much. Actually, this JPEG that we have on screen is actually a photograph.
That is a photograph.
And this photograph was actually inspired from a painting that I did a few years previously, using the same subject.
Oh, now, interesting.
So this is the actual oil painting.
So you did the painting first, and then you did the
photograph. So that's almost in a reverse order that I usually do a photograph first, and so that's sort of how my paintings and photographs. There's that dialogue running back and forth, and I sort of bounce from one media to the other. Sometimes working a subject, working an idea.
Now, where did you get your original education from?
I attended, was blessed to attend Pierre College of Art.
In Hampton? That's not
yes,
still...
Yes, they're still open.
Oh, they're still open?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Pierre. I haven't heard of them, yes.
And I was working with some wonderful top artists and educators around the country. Ken Davies, who's a preeminent still life painter, was one of my teachers and became a very good close friend. John Massimino, who's still painting in East Haven, was a tremendous teacher and a big influence on the way that I use design in my work. Bob Zappalardi is there. Rudolph Zallinger, you might know Rudolph's work at the Peabody Museum, the large murals of the dinosaurs.
Yes!
He painted that when he was a student back at Yale. And his wife and his son were also professors there at Pierre.
Wow!
It was just a wonderful school. Learned so much from the professors. Learned so much from the other students. It was a great environment.
Well, I would love to have you back with one or two of your other professors, and we can talk about the interrelationship and the growth and development. Because I've spoken to you a few times now, and your comments about them are just inspiring. And if only one of my former students would speak about that about me. But the interesting thing, the real interesting thing, is the director for this show, Doug, he's in the control room. He was your student.
Yes, he was. He was in one of my first classes that I taught at Style School in West Haven. And he was in a wonderful 5th grade class have wonderful memories of him and his classmates at that school.
Now, this is just between us, okay?
Yeah.
Was he a bad boy?
Not at all, not at all. Never gave me a problem.
Yeah. Don't let that go to your head, Douglas. Okay, I'd like to move on. So then there's another style of painting,
Trompe-l'oeil. It's
Trompe-l'oeil.
French, which means fool the eye. And it's a very realistic type of painting. Very sharp-focused painting, use of a lot of detail.
Now, would the shoe be an example
Yes,
of that?
shoe would be an example of it, especially some of the detail, like around the texture of the shoe.
Now he's going to do a close-up of the shoe. And Richard pointed out to me that even on the shoe, you could see like the this is a painting,
yes.
but you could see the individual laces.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see because it's very dark, but there's laces going around this area of the shoe and this area of the shoe.
Yes.
And each lace had to be painted.
And he also mentioned to me are the buttons?
Yes, the buttons as well. Had to make sure that the reflections, work well with the design. And,
where did you find this shoe?
at an old antique shop. I used to collect all kinds of little antiques that I would end up using as subjects of my paintings. Luckily, I didn't throw them away. I still have them. So occasionally they'll come back and I'll revisit them again, and maybe this subject will be a photograph again someday or another painting.
Well, I have to tell you, people always say clean out, but anytime I throw anything out, I want it. I want it a couple days later. Yeah. So, and we also noticed the wood grain. Now, is this something that we discussed earlier called a worm's eye view?
Yes, worm's eye view is when you're looking at the subject from a low angle. Gives a little bit more prominence to the subjects that you're working on rather than looking at them above.
Now, and actually now I know where I kind of got this, because as a photographer out in the field, you have to get down at the level of what you're photographing.
Yeah, spend a lot of time on my belly,
but
shooting.
You don't do
things.
that when you're painting.
No, with painting it would be tough to paint on my belly. So I'm usually actually raising the subjects higher. So when I'm actually looking at them and painting them from life, I could see them at the angle that I want.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. That makes total sense. And then I want to talk about the image behind me. Is that on a JPEG? Or?
I don't believe that's on a JPEG. I think it's just.
Okay, tell me now this one, because it's right behind me, but this I found fascinating because you had this is an example again of
yes, sharp focus still life painting, Trompe-l'oeil.
Because you show the chip on. The chip on the hair? Yeah,
there's chip and there's wood grain, and was interested again. This was an image where I actually lit the subjects from the back. I had my lamp positioned behind the frame of the glass, and the light was coming from them. So I was really interested in the transparencies of the glass and how the shadows played across the items.
That's interesting, and that you say that, because when you were out of the room working with the director. Because I was looking at the painting with someone, and that was pointed out to me, and it makes total sense that you had it lit from the back.
Yeah. When you see the shadow on the base of the bottle, you can see that shadow is coming towards us rather than normally the shadows would either fall to the side or behind the subject.
Yes, very, and you even can just barely see the words on the bottle.
Yeah. It was an old peel label on the bottle that you can barely see the words on there.
Yes. Now, I'm not quite sure about how much time we have left, but I'm just looking to. We have a picture of a woman with a braid on a JPEG.
Okay. Yes. Was a woman that I painted in the southern part of Italy called Buccino, and. I'm very, very attracted to the older faces. They have a lot of they have a lot of history. The lines on their face just tell a story. And we were luckily we went to on a family trip with Vinnie Maritoli, who runs these wine lover tours, and he was able to bring the family to see some of our ancestral homes. And we were there in southern Italy, and they had a 3-day festival. And people were marching through the streets. They had performers coming through. They were marching the saint through the streets. And this woman was there. And I did a painting of her. And then actually later on went to the original photograph and then did an example of the photograph behind me as well, taking what I learned through the painting and then sort of applying it to the photograph.
Now that's so interesting to me that you cross mediums like that. And also a word you just said is what you learned from the painting. And you obviously work with Photoshop.
Yes, yes.
Are you accomplished in that?
No, I'm just sort of picking up as much as I can. Milford Photos offered some great workshops that I've picked things up, and then through the North Haven Camera Club, there are some members that are really highly skilled in Photoshop, and just kind of experimenting and playing with
Photoshop. I take classes, I work on it, then I don't touch it, and I forget everything.
That's the problem. Yeah,
That's
you
the
have
problem.
to keep
I
up
have
with
a few issues. Now we don't have that much time left, so I want to ask you if someone wanted to contact you, how would they do that?
The best way is to reach me at my website at www.markbattista.com. And just they have a link to shoot me an email through the website.
And do you give, I'm wondering, do you give painting lessons?
Yes, I do teach privately painting lessons and photography lessons, one-on-one photography lessons as well.
Now, when you give painting lessons, what medium do you give it in? Oil or watercolor? Or
actually,
acrylic?
pretty much pencil, oil, and acrylic. But if somebody does want to learn pastel or acrylic, as well as watercolor, I can.
You can do
teach
that.
Yeah.
What do you prefer personally to work in?
Personally, I love the oils and the watercolors. The oils because I could really get in and create some really sharp focus detail. And the watercolor for the fluidity and the spontaneity of the media. It's nice to bounce back and forth to be really, really tight and then be a little bit more expressive with the paint.
Yeah. Well, I think that's amazing. It really is amazing. I'm getting more and more interested in art, and I imagine myself as the next Van Gogh.
Okay.
You know, I'm just saying.
It's all related. It's all connected.
It is. And so if you have this contact information, would you just say it one more time?
Okay, it's www.markbattista.com.
And if you forget that and you need to contact BCTV, they'll put you in contact with me, or they'll send me the information, and you can contact me at jmdteach@comcast.net. Mark, thank you for being on the show. It was a wonderful treat.
Thank you.
Thank you.